When the photo of LeBron James hugging 12-year-old Sarah Martinez went viral, everyone thought they knew the story. A basketball superstar making a dying girl's wish come true. But they were wrong. The real reason behind that hug would change thousands of lives and remind the world that true champions aren't measured by the trophies they win, but by the hearts they touch. This is the story of Sarah Martinez, a girl who loved basketball more than anything, and how her last shot became a first chance for countless others. The basketball bounced against the driveway with a steady thump, thump, thump as Sarah Martinez practiced her shots. The early morning sun cast long shadows across her family's small house in Cleveland, Ohio. She had been up since 6, just like every morning, wearing her treasured LeBron James Lakers jersey. It was a hand-me-down from her cousin, slightly faded and a bit too big, but Sarah loved it more than any new clothes she owned. 3 seconds left on the clock, Sarah whispered to herself, dribbling the ball between her legs like she'd seen LeBron do countless times. Martinez has the ball. The Lakers need this shot to win the championship. She spun around an imaginary defender, jumped, and released the ball. It arced through the air and swished perfectly through the rusty hoop her mom had installed for pole. Her 10th birthday 2 years ago. She scores! Sarah threw her arms up in celebration, but the sudden movement made her feel dizzy. She'd been getting tired more easily lately, and weird bruises had been showing up on her legs and arms, but she didn't want to worry her mom about it. Elena Martinez already worked too hard, juggling jobs at the diner and the grocery store to keep their little family of 2 going. The screen door creaked open. "Mija, you need to eat breakfast before school," her mom called out, her dark hair pulled back in a neat bun for her morning shift at Ruby's diner. She was still wearing her fuzzy purple slippers, a Christmas gift Sarah had saved up to buy her. 5 more minutes? Sarah pleaded, already, dribbling again. "I almost got this new move down." Her mom shook her head but smiled. 3 minutes, then breakfast. "I made your favorite, pancakes with banana smiley faces." Sarah grinned. Her mom only made special pancakes when she had good news. She quickened her practice, ignoring the way her arms felt heavier than usual. The morning sun caught the silver chain around her neck. Another treasure. This one containing a small photo of her father in his army uniform. He had died when Sarah was just a baby, but her mom always said Sarah had his determination and his love for basketball. Inside their cozy kitchen, the smell of pancakes filled the air. Sarah's mouth watered as she slid into her usual chair at their small table. The kitchen walls were covered with Sarah's basketball posters and her own drawings of famous plays. The biggest poster showed LeBron James mid-dunk, his expression intense and focused. "So?" her mom said, sliding a plate of pancakes across the table. The banana slices made a perfect smile, with chocolate chip eyes. "Remember how you've been wanting to see a real Lakers game?" Sarah's heart skipped a beat. "Mom?" "Well, Ruby, you know, my boss at the diner. Her son works at the Rocket Mortgage Fieldhouse. And guess who's playing there next month?" Sarah jumped up so fast her chair almost fell over. "The Lakers? For real? They're coming here." Her mom nodded, her eyes twinkling. "Ruby's son got us tickets. They're up pretty high, but..." Sarah ran around the table and hugged her mom so tight that her mother let out a surprised laugh. "I don't care if we're in the very last row. We're going to see LeBron James play. In person." The excitement made Sarah's head spin a little, but she ignored it. This was too important to let anything ruin it. She had been following LeBron's career religiously since she was 7. She knew all his stats, watched every game she could, and practiced his moves until she could copy them perfectly. Or almost perfectly. "Now, Mija," her mom said, smoothing Sarah's dark curls. The game isn't until next month, and tickets aren't cheap. We'll need to be careful with money until then, okay? Maybe fewer stops at the pizza place after your playground games? I'll even eat bologna sandwiches every day, Sarah promised solemnly. I don't care. This is going to be the best day ever. Her mom laughed and kissed the top of her head. Eat your pancakes before they get cold. And don't forget you have a doctor's appointment this afternoon. Just a regular checkup. Sarah nodded, already diving into her breakfast. She had almost forgotten about the doctor's appointment. She glanced down at a new bruise on her arm, then quickly pulled down her jersey sleeve to cover it. No need to mention that. Nothing was going to get in the way of seeing LeBron James play. At school that day, Sarah could hardly focus on her lessons. During math class, she found herself calculating how many days until the Lakers game, instead of solving the fraction problems on the board. At lunch, she told her best friend Maria all about the tickets. That's so awesome, Maria squealed, her braids bouncing with excitement. You have to take pictures, and maybe you'll even get his autograph. That would be amazing, Sarah sighed dreamily. But Mom says our seats are pretty far up. Still, just being in the same building as LeBron James? That's like magic, Maria suggested. Better than magic, Sarah declared. She pulled out her notebook and showed Maria the list she'd been working on all morning. Ways I might meet LeBron James. The list included everything, from arriving super early to holding up the world's biggest sign. The rest of the school day dragged by slowly. Sarah usually loved her classes, especially when they got to do science experiments or work on creative writing stories. But today, all she could think about was basketball. During PE class, she showed off some of her best moves, even though the dizziness came back and she had to sit down for a few minutes to catch her breath. After school, her mom picked her up in their old blue Honda for the doctor's appointment. The car had definitely seen better days, but Sarah loved it because of the little basketball that hung from the rearview mirror, a gift she had made in art class last year. How was school, baby? Her mom asked, glancing at Sarah in the rearview mirror. Great. Maria's going to help me make a sign for the game. Do you think the players can see signs from the very top rows? If you make it big enough, I'm sure they can, her mom said. But Sarah noticed something odd in her voice. Her mom kept looking at her in the mirror, like she was checking to make sure Sarah was still there. At the doctor's office, Sarah swung her legs back and forth on the examination table, the paper crinkling beneath her. She didn't mind checkups. Usually, Dr. Thompson was nice and always asked about basketball. But today, she just wanted it to be over so she could get back to planning for the game. Any changes lately, Sarah? Dr. Thompson asked, looking at her chart. Feeling tired? Any bruises that seemed to appear out of nowhere? Sarah hesitated. She saw her mom watching her carefully from the chair in the corner. Maybe a little tired, she admitted. But I've been practicing really hard. We're going to see the Lakers next month, and I want to be ready in case I get to show LeBron my crossover. Dr. Thompson smiled, but it wasn't his usual big smile. He turned to her mom and said something about running a few extra tests, just to be sure. Sarah barely paid attention. She was too busy imagining what it would be like to see her hero play in person. Would he do his famous chalk toss before the game? Would he make one of those incredible fadeaway shots? Would he somehow, by some miracle, notice the sign she and Maria were going to make? What Sarah didn't notice was the way Dr. Thompson's face grew serious as he looked at her chart, or how her mom's hands trembled slightly as she filled out some forms. In Sarah's mind, she was already at the game, watching LeBron James soar through the air, defying gravity, just like she dreamed of, doing herself someday. As they left the doctor's office, Sarah's mom was quieter than usual, but Sarah filled the silence with chatter about the upcoming game. her words tumbling out faster and faster with excitement. She had no way of knowing that this doctor's visit would change everything, that the game she was so excited about would come to mean something very different than what she imagined. For now, though, Sarah was just a 12-year-old girl with a basketball dream, wearing her favorite jersey and counting down the days until she would see her hero play. The late afternoon sun caught the silver chain around her neck, making it shine like a star, like a promise of something magical to come. Elena Martinez couldn't sleep that night. The words from Dr. Thompson kept echoing in her head. "We need to run more tests. The blood work shows some concerning patterns." She turned over in bed, trying not to think about the bruises she'd noticed on Sarah's arms, the way her energetic daughter had been getting tired so easily lately. The next morning, Elena called in sick to both her jobs for the first time in 3 years. Ruby at the diner understood immediately. She had been there when Elena first started as a waitress, pregnant with Sarah, and determined to make it on her own after James died in Afghanistan. The grocery store manager was less understanding, but Elena couldn't bring herself to care right now. Sarah was still sleeping, which wasn't like her at all. Usually, the sound of her basketball hitting the driveway would wake Elena up before sunrise. Looking at her daughter's peaceful face, Elena felt her heart squeeze. Sarah looked so much like James, the same determined chin, the same curls that never stayed put. The phone rang, making Elena jump. It was Dr. Thompson's office. "Mrs. Martinez? We've got the preliminary results back. Could you come in? Without Sarah, please. We need to discuss some things." Elena's hands shook as she wrote a note for Sarah. "Gone to run errands. Pancakes in the microwave. Love you lots. Mom." She added a little heart, just like she always did, pretending this was just another normal day. The waiting room at Dr. Thompson's office felt colder than usual. Elena clutched her purse, the one Sarah had picked out for her birthday because it was Lakers purple, and tried to stay calm. When the nurse called her name, her legs felt like lead as she followed her down the hallway. Dr. Thompson wasn't smiling when she entered his office. He had been Sarah's doctor since she was a baby. He had put SpongeBob Band-Aids on her scraped knees and given her lollipops after shots. But today, his kind face was serious. "Elena," he said gently, "please, sit down." The next few minutes seemed to stretch forever as Dr. Thompson explained about blood cells and bone marrow and terms that made Elena's head spin. But one word cut through everything else like a knife: leukemia. "It's an aggressive form," Dr. Thompson was saying, "but we caught it relatively early. There are treatment options. St. Mary's Children's Hospital has an excellent oncology unit." Elena heard herself asking questions, saw herself nodding at the answers, but it all felt like a dream, a nightmare she couldn't wake up from. All she could think about was Sarah, probably up by now, practicing her basketball moves in the driveway, dreaming about seeing LeBron James play next month. How? Elena's voice cracked. She took a deep breath and tried again. "How do I tell her?" Dr. Thompson leaned forward, his eyes kind. "We can help with that. Many families find it helpful to have a medical professional present when breaking this kind of news. The most important thing is to be honest while remaining hopeful. There have been many advances in treatment." But Elena was thinking about the Lakers tickets in her purse, about Sarah's excitement just yesterday, about how unfair it was that her beautiful, brave, basketball-loving daughter had to face this. The drive home was a blur. Elena had to pull over twice because she couldn't see through her tears. But by the time she turned onto their street, she had forced herself to stop crying. She couldn't let Sarah see her like this. Not yet. The basketball sounds from their driveway made her heart ache. Sarah was there, practicing as usual, her jersey catching the morning light. But now, Elena saw everything differently. The way. Sarah had to stop more often to catch her breath. How she moved just a little slower than usual. The paleness of her skin despite the exercise. "Mom!" Sarah waved, grinning. "Watch this new move I made up." Elena made herself smile and watch as Sarah did a complicated dribble between her legs. "That's amazing, Mija. But maybe take a break. I brought home your favorite breakfast sandwich from Ruby's." "But I already had pancakes," Sarah said, still dribbling. "A growing girl needs her strength," Elena managed to say, the words tasting bitter in her mouth. How many times had she said that before, never knowing what was growing inside? Her daughter wasn't strength, but something much darker. They ate together at the kitchen table, Sarah chattering about the Lakers game, about the sign she and Maria were planning to make, about how many days were left until she'd see LeBron James play. Elena nodded and smiled at all the right moments, but her mind was racing. Should she tell Sarah now? Should she wait for Dr. Thompson's help? Should they cancel the game tickets? "Mom, are you okay?" Sarah's voice broke through her thoughts. "You're crying." Elena touched her cheek, surprised to find it wet. "Just happy tears, baby. Thinking about how proud I am of you." Sarah beamed, but then her face turned serious. "Mom, those tests yesterday? Was everything okay?" The moment hung between them like a suspended basketball, just before it either swishes through the net or misses completely. Elena looked at her daughter, her beautiful, brave daughter who had never given up on anything in her life, and made a decision. "We need to go back to Dr. Thompson tomorrow," she said carefully. "He wants to do some more tests." "But what about basketball practice? I have that shoot-around with Maria." "We'll work it out," Elena promised, reaching across the table to squeeze Sarah's hand. "We always do, right?" Sarah nodded, but Elena saw a flicker of worry cross her face. Her daughter was smart, sometimes too smart. She must have noticed things too, the tiredness, the bruises, the way everything felt just a little bit harder lately. "Hey," Elena said, forcing brightness into her voice, "why don't we watch some Lakers highlights? I want you to show me that move LeBron did in last night's game, the one you were trying to copy this morning." Sarah's face lit up again, the worry forgotten for now. As they moved to the living room and Sarah pulled up the game highlights on their old laptop, Elena sent up a silent prayer to God, to James, to anyone who might be listening, for strength. Not for herself, but for the difficult days ahead, for the moment tomorrow when their world would change forever. For Sarah, who had no idea that her dream of seeing LeBron James play would soon mean something very different than what she imagined. For now, though, Elena just held her daughter, close as they watched basketball highlights together, treasuring every laugh, every excited explanation of a play, every precious moment of before. The next morning felt different. Sarah noticed it the moment she woke up. For one thing, her mom hadn't left for her morning shift at the diner. For another, there was no smell of coffee brewing, just a strange, heavy silence in the house. "Mom!" Sarah called out, pulling on her Lakers jersey. It was wash day, but she didn't want to take it off. Something told her she needed her lucky jersey today. Elena was sitting at the kitchen table, already dressed. 2 untouched bowls of cereal sat in front of her. "Come sit with me, Mija." Sarah's stomach did a funny flip. Her mom never skipped work, and she never looked this serious, except for that one time when Sarah had climbed onto the roof to practice shooting at a higher basket and nearly fallen off. "Are we still going to Dr. Thompson's?" Sarah asked, sliding into her chair, She pushed the cereal around with her spoon, not feeling very hungry. "Yes, baby. But first, I need to tell you something." Her mom reached across the table and took Sarah's hand. Her palm felt sweaty. "Yesterday, Dr. Thompson called me about your test results." The ceiling fan whirred overhead, making the Lakers poster on the wall flutter slightly. Sarah watched LeBron's image move back and forth, back and forth. "Is it about why I've been getting tired? Because I can practice less if—" "Sarah." Her mom's voice cracked a little. "The tests showed that you're sick. Pretty sick. It's called leukemia. It's a type of cancer that affects your blood." The word cancer seemed to echo in the kitchen, bouncing off the walls like a basketball gone wrong. Sarah felt her chest get tight, but not like when she was tired from playing. This was different. This was scary. "But people get better from cancer, right?" Sarah heard herself ask. Her voice sounded far away. "I mean, there's medicine and stuff?" Her mom squeezed her hand tighter. "Yes, baby. There are treatments, really good ones. Dr. Thompson is going to explain everything today. But I need you to know something." She stood up and came around the table, pulling Sarah into a tight hug. "You are the strongest person I know. Stronger than me. Stronger than LeBron?" Sarah tried to joke, but her voice wobbled. Her mom laughed softly, but it sounded more like a sob. "Way stronger than LeBron." At the hospital, everything seemed too bright and too white. Dr. Thompson's office looked different from yesterday. Or maybe Sarah was just seeing it differently. She sat between her mom and the doctor, looking at the pictures he showed them on his computer. They were supposed to be her blood cells, but they just looked like weird blobs to her. "The good news," Dr. Thompson was saying, "is that we caught this early. We're going to start treatment right away. You'll need to stay in the hospital sometimes, but we have a great recreation room with a basketball hoop." Sarah nodded, but she was thinking about something else. "The Lakers game is in 3 weeks," she said suddenly. "Will I be better by then?" The adults exchanged a look that made Sarah's stomach hurt worse than any of the symptoms she'd been having. "Let's focus on getting you started with treatment," Dr. Thompson said gently. "Then we'll see about basketball games." The rest of the day passed in a blur of more tests, more doctors, more explanations. Sarah learned words she never wanted to know. Chemotherapy, bone marrow, blood counts. But through it all, she kept thinking about basketball, about LeBron James, about how he never gave up even when his team was down by 20 points. That evening, back in her own room, Sarah pulled out her notebook and started a new list. But instead of "Ways I Might Meet LeBron James," she titled this one, "Things I Want to Do." Her hand shook a little as she wrote, "See LeBron James play in person. Learn to do a perfect fadeaway shot 3. Teach Maria my crossover move. Make Mom smile again. Beat cancer." She stared at the last item for a long time. Then, with determination, she drew a star next to it and wrote "Most Important" in big letters. There was a soft knock at her door. Her mom came in, carrying 2 mugs of hot chocolate with extra marshmallows, their special occasion drink. "What are you working on?" her mom asked, setting down the mugs. Sarah showed her the list. Her mom, "Read it." And for a moment, Sarah thought she might cry again. But instead, she smiled. A real smile. Not the worried one she'd been wearing all day. "You know what?" her mom said, pulling something from her pocket. "I think we should add one more thing to your list." She handed Sarah an envelope. Inside were the Lakers tickets. Sarah had almost forgotten about them with everything else that had happened. "But," I thought, "with the treatment and everything?" Dr. Thompson said, "We'll work around it," her mom said firmly. "It might be tricky, and you'll need to be extra careful. But if you're feeling strong enough that day, we're going to that game." Sarah jumped up and hugged her mom so hard they almost spilled the hot chocolate. "Thank you, thank you, thank you." "Just promise me one thing," her mom said, wiping her eyes. "Promise me you'll tell me if you're feeling tired or sick. No hiding it anymore, okay? We're a team in this." "Like LeBron and AD?" Sarah asked, referring to LeBron's teammate Anthony Davis. "Even better than them," her mom smiled. That night, Sarah couldn't sleep. She kept thinking about everything that had happened, everything that was going to happen. The word cancer still scared her, but she tried to think about it like a tough opponent in basketball. You couldn't let fear of losing stop you from playing your best game. She got up and went to her window, looking out at the driveway where her basketball hoop stood in the moonlight. The ball was still there where she'd left it yesterday, not knowing how different everything would be today. Touching the silver chain around her neck, she thought about her dad. Had he been scared in Afghanistan? Had he kept fighting anyway? Sarah took out her phone and opened her favorite video, LeBron James's famous speech about never giving up, about proving people wrong, about being more than what others expect you to be. She'd watched it so many times she knew every word by heart. But tonight, they meant something new. "Watch me," she whispered to her reflection in the window. "Watch me beat this." Her Lakers jersey hung on the back of her chair, the number 23 gleaming in the moonlight. Tomorrow, she would start treatment. Tomorrow, things would get hard, harder than any basketball game she'd ever played. But tonight, she was adding one more thing to her list. Make a difference. She didn't know exactly what that meant yet, but something told her it was important. Maybe even more important than meeting LeBron James. Maybe even more important than everything else except beating cancer. Sarah crawled back into bed, holding her dad's chain in one hand and her list in the other. Outside, a shooting star streaked across the sky. Or maybe it was just an airplane heading to Los Angeles. Either way, Sarah made a wish. Not for herself, but for all the other kids who might be lying in their beds tonight, scared of what tomorrow would bring. What she didn't know, couldn't know, was that her wish would come true in a way she never expected. That sometimes the biggest dreams come true differently than we imagine. That sometimes being brave isn't about winning, but about how you play the game. But that was all still to come. For now, Sarah Martinez, the girl who loved basketball more than anything, fell asleep planning how she would decorate her hospital room with Lakers posters and dreaming of the day she would see her hero play. News travels fast in small towns, and by the time Sarah went back to school the next week, everyone knew. She could tell by the way her teachers smiled extra kindly at her, and how some kids looked at her like she might break. But the worst part was basketball practice. "You should sit this one out," Coach Wilson said when Sarah showed up in her gym clothes. "Just until we check with your doctors." Sarah felt her face get hot. "But I feel fine today. The doctor said I can still play as long as I'm careful." Coach Wilson looked uncertain, but then Maria stepped forward. "I'll be her buddy, Coach. I'll make sure she doesn't overdo it." That's how it started. Maria becoming Sarah's basketball buddy. But it didn't stop there. By the end of practice, half the team had volunteered to be backup buddies. "We should make it official," Maria said as they walked home after school. "Like a club or something. The basketball buddies." Sarah laughed, but she felt warm inside. It was the first real laugh she'd had since finding out about the cancer. "That sounds kind of silly." "No, for real." Maria's braids bounced as she got excited. "And you know what else? We should do something special for the Lakers game. Make it huge. That's when Maria pulled out her phone and showed Sarah what she'd been working on. A social media post about Sarah's story and her dream of seeing LeBron James play. She'd even created a hashtag. Sarah's last shot. Last shot? Sarah frowned. That sounds like... No, Maria quickly said. Not like that. Like your last chance to see LeBron play in Cleveland this season. See? She pointed to the bottom of the post where she'd written, "Help make Sarah's dream come true before the Lakers leave town." Sarah had to admit it was pretty clever, but she wasn't sure about sharing her story with the whole internet. What if people think it's just for attention? Who cares what they think? Maria said firmly. Besides, look, people are already sharing it. Sure enough, the post had dozens of shares already. Sarah recognized some names from school, but others were complete strangers. One comment caught her eye. "My cousin had the same thing. She beat it. You will too, Sarah. Zern. Sarah's last shot." That evening at the hospital, it was a treatment day. Sarah showed the post to her mom. Elena was worried at first. She always was about social media. But when she saw how many encouraging messages there were, she softened. "Just promise me you won't read any negative comments," her mom said, squeezing Sarah's hand as the medicine dripped through the IV. "Maria deletes those right away," Sarah assured her. She didn't mention that there hadn't been many negative comments. Anyway, it seemed like everyone wanted to help. The next day at school, something amazing happened. Jenny Chen, whose mom owned the local print shop, brought in a huge blank banner. "We can all sign it," Jenny explained during lunch. "And maybe write messages. For LeBron. My mom says we can make it big enough that he'll definitely see it from the court." Soon, the banner was spread across several lunch tables. Kids Sarah barely knew came up to write messages and draw pictures. Even some teachers added their signatures. "Look at this," Maria pointed to one message. It was from Mr. Rodriguez, the janitor who always let them practice in the gym after hours. He'd written in careful letters, "LeBron, our Sarah has your fighting spirit. Cleveland still loves you." The local news caught wind of the story that weekend. A reporter came to interview Sarah while she was practicing in her driveway. She felt nervous at first, but the reporter asked about basketball instead of cancer, which made it easier. "What would you say to LeBron if you met him?" the reporter asked. Sarah thought about it. "I'd tell him that watching him play makes me feel stronger. Like, when I'm having a hard day with treatment, I think about how he never gives up, even when his team is behind. And then I feel like I can keep going too." The story aired that night. Sarah watched it with her mom, both of them curled up on the couch with bowls of ice cream. The reporter had even included clips of Sarah shooting baskets, and you could hardly tell she was sick at all. "You're a natural on camera, Mija," her mom said proudly. But the best part came the next morning. Maria burst into Sarah's hospital room. It was another treatment day, waving her phone. "You'll never believe this," she practically shouted. "The story went viral. People all over Ohio are sharing it. And look, some Lakers fans in LA picked it up too." Sarah scrolled through the posts, her eyes getting bigger. People she'd never met were sharing her story, adding their own messages of support. Some sent pictures of themselves doing basketball shots with Sarah's last shot written on their basketballs. A nurse poked her head in. "What's all the excitement about?" "Sarah's famous," Maria announced. "Not famous," Sarah corrected, but she couldn't stop smiling. "People are just being nice." "More than nice," the nurse said, looking at the posts. "They're being a community." That word, community, stuck with Sarah. She thought about it during her treatment, watching the medicine that was supposed to make her better drip slowly into her arm. She thought about all the people who had signed the banner, shared the posts, sent messages. Even the kids at school who used to ignore her were part of it now. Later that afternoon, Maria came back with more news. She'd started a fundraiser to help with the Lakers game expenses. "Your mom won't have to worry about taking time off work," Maria explained. "And maybe we can even get better seats." Sarah felt tears in her eyes. "You didn't have to do all this." "Of course I did. You're my best friend. And besides," Maria grinned mischievously, "when you meet LeBron James, I want to be there to take the picture." Sarah laughed, but something caught in her throat. Not from the medicine this time, but from feeling so full of gratitude it almost hurt. That night, as she added another Lakers poster to her hospital room wall, the nurses had stopped counting, Sarah thought about her list of things she wanted to do. Number 6. Make a difference. Didn't seem so mysterious anymore. Maybe making a difference wasn't about doing something huge. Maybe it was about bringing people together, about showing them that even when things got tough, you could still find hope. She didn't know it yet, but Sarah's last shot was about to reach someone very important in Los Angeles. Someone who knew a thing or two about making a difference. Someone who would turn her dream into something bigger than she ever imagined. But for now, Sarah just smiled at all the encouraging messages on her phone, held her dad's chain tight, and dreamed about game day. The hospital room felt different at night. During the day, it was bright and cheerful with all the Lakers posters and the cards from school covering every wall. But at night, when the machines beeped quietly and the hallway lights dimmed, it felt more real somehow. Sarah couldn't sleep. The new medicine they'd started her on made her stomach hurt, and no matter how many times she changed positions, she couldn't get comfortable. She reached for her phone to watch Lakers highlights, but her hand shook so much she dropped it on. "The blanket. Mija?" Her mom's voice came from the fold-out chair where she'd been trying to sleep. "What's wrong?" "Nothing," Sarah tried to say, but suddenly she was crying. Not just regular crying, the kind that comes from deep inside, that you can't stop even if you want to. Her mom was there in an instant, holding her like she used to when Sarah was little and had nightmares. "It's okay, baby. Let it out." "What if—" Sarah hiccuped between sobs. "What if I can't go to the game? I feel so much worse than before." It was true. The past week had been hard. The new treatments made her so tired she could barely walk to the bathroom by herself. Her hair had started falling out in clumps, so Maria had helped her pick out a purple Lakers bandana to wear. Even the smell of food made her feel sick. Dr. Thompson said this might happen. Her mom reminded her gently. "The medicine has to work. Hard to fight the bad cells. That's why you feel worse right now." Sarah wiped her eyes with her Lakers jersey sleeve. She still wore it every day, even though it was getting looser on her shrinking frame. "But the game is in 2 weeks. Maria's been working so hard on everything, and all those people who donated money." "Hey!" Her mom took Sarah's face in her hands. "Look at me. What matters is you getting better. Everyone will understand if—" A sharp pain cut through Sarah's stomach, making her double over. The next few minutes were a blur of nurses rushing in, machines beeping faster, her mom's worried voice saying something about fever. Dr. Thompson arrived, still wearing his coat like he'd rushed from home. Sarah tried to focus on what he was saying, but the pain made everything fuzzy. She caught words like infection and white blood cell count and need to be careful. Through it all, she kept thinking about the Lakers game, about the giant banner Jenny's mom had made, about all the people following their Sarah's last shot online, about letting everyone down. The sun was rising by the time the pain medicine finally kicked in. Sarah felt floaty, like she was watching everything from far away. Her mom was talking quietly with Dr. Thompson in the corner of the room. "Mom," Sarah's voice sounded strange to her own ears. "Can you hand me my notebook?" Her mom brought over the notebook where Sarah kept her list. With shaky hands, Sarah opened to a new page and wrote, "Things that can't beat me." At the top of the list, she put, "Cancer." "That's my girl," her mom whispered, kissing her forehead. The next few days passed in a haze of medications, tests, and fitful sleep. Maria came to visit every day after school, bringing updates about the banner and the fundraiser. She never mentioned that Sarah looked worse, just talked about normal things like homework and basketball plays. Coach Wilson says the whole team is going to wear purple bandanas for the game, Maria said one afternoon while helping Sarah adjust her pillows. Jenny's mom is making them special with Rihanna Sarah's last shot printed on them. Sarah managed a small smile. "You might have to take pictures for me." "No way," Maria said firmly. "You're going to be there. I can feel it." But that evening, Dr. Thompson came in with more test results. Sarah could tell by his face it wasn't good news. "The infection is affecting your immune system," he explained. "Being in a crowded arena right now would be very risky." Sarah felt like all the air had been sucked out of the room. She'd known this might happen, had felt it coming in her bones, but hearing it made it real. "Isn't there something we can do?" her mom asked. "Extra medicine, or masks, or—" Dr. Thompson shook his head sadly. "I'm so sorry, Sarah. I know how much this meant to you." That night, after everyone had gone and the hospital was quiet again, Sarah took out her phone. Her hands were steadier now, strong enough to type a message to all her supporters. "Thank you for everything you've done to help make my dream come true. Sometimes life throws you a really hard defense, and you have to change your game plan. I can't go to the Lakers game, but knowing you all believed in me makes me feel like a champion anyway." Sarah's last shot isn't about seeing one basketball game. It's about never giving up, no matter what. She hit send before she could change her mind. Then she took off her dad's chain and held it up to the light, watching it sparkle like it had that day when everything was still normal. "I'm not giving up, Dad," she whispered. "Just changing the play." Messages started pouring in immediately. Not sad ones, but fierce ones, strong ones, people sharing their own stories of setbacks and comebacks. Someone even made a new hashtag, Sarah Strong. Sarah fell asleep holding her phone, the screen still glowing with messages of support. She dreamed of basketball courts and purple bandanas, and her dad watching from somewhere above, proud of how she was playing the game life had given her. What she didn't know was that her message had reached far beyond Cleveland. That sometimes the biggest assists come from unexpected places, that even when you think the game is over, there might be one more play left to run. But for now, in her hospital room covered with Lakers posters and dreams that needed revising, Sarah Martinez slept. And somewhere in Los Angeles, a notification popped up on a very important phone, carrying her story across the country like a perfectly thrown pass. Dave Thompson had been LeBron James's social media manager for 7 years, and he'd seen thousands of heartfelt posts. But something about Sarah's last shot made him stop scrolling. Maybe it was the picture of the young girl in an oversized Lakers jersey, shooting baskets in a hospital courtyard. Maybe it was her message about changing the game plan. Whatever it was, he found himself clicking through the entire story at 2 a.m. Los Angeles time. "Boss needs to see this," he muttered, hitting forward on his phone. The next morning in Cleveland, Sarah was having a better day. The infection was finally starting to respond to the antibiotics, and she'd managed to eat half a piece of toast. For breakfast, her mom had gone home to shower and get clean clothes, promising to bring back Sarah's favorite Lakers hoodie. And guess what? Maria burst into the room, her braids decorated with purple ribbons. The local news wants to do another story. They saw your message last night and... She stopped, noticing Sarah's tired face. Or I can tell them it's not a good time. No, it's okay, Sarah said, sitting up straighter. Maybe it'll help other kids who are going through tough stuff too, Maria grinned. That's my superstar. Just then, Sarah's phone buzzed. She expected another kind message from someone in Cleveland, but this number had a Los Angeles area code. Her heart did a funny jump. Hello, she answered, trying to keep her voice steady. Is this Sarah Martinez? A professional-sounding woman asked. Yes. I'm calling from the Los Angeles Lakers organization. We've been following your story, and we'd like to... Sarah almost dropped the phone. Maria, who had been pretending not to listen, let out a squeal. Arrange a video call? With you, if you're feeling up to it? The woman continued. Would that be possible? Sarah looked at Maria, who was jumping up and down silently. Yes, ma'am. That would be amazing. Wonderful. And Sarah? LeBron asked me to tell you personally that he's very impressed with your positive attitude. This time Sarah did drop the phone. Maria caught it before it hit the bed. Thank you, Maria said smoothly into the phone, while Sarah tried to remember how to breathe. What time should we be ready? After the call ended, both girls sat in stunned silence for a moment. Then they both started talking at once. Did that really just happen? LeBron James knows who you are. What should I wear? We have to call your mom. What if I say something stupid? You could never say anything stupid. A nurse poked her head in. Everything okay in here? Your heart monitor showed some excitement. Sarah and Maria looked at each other and burst out laughing. When Elena returned with the hoodie, she found her daughter sitting up in bed, color in her cheeks for the first time in days. As soon as Sarah told her about the call, she burst into tears, happy ones this time. Mom, Sarah protested, you can't cry during the video call. I make no promises, Elena said, wiping her eyes. The rest of the day was a blur of preparation. The hospital staff helped move Sarah to a private room with better Wi-Fi. Jenny's mom rushed over with a new Lakers banner to hang behind the bed. Sarah's nurses helped her wash her face and adjust her purple bandana just right. Remember, Maria coached, just be yourself. That's who everyone fell in love with anyway. At exactly 4 p.m. Cleveland time, 1 p.m. in LA, the video call came through. Sarah grabbed her mom's hand as the screen lit up, but it wasn't LeBron, at least not yet. It was Dave Thompson, the social media manager, getting everything set up. He chatted with Sarah about basketball while they waited, making her feel more comfortable. Okay, Sarah, Dave said finally. Ready to meet someone? Sarah nodded, not trusting her voice. The screen shifted, and there he was, LeBron James himself, sitting in what looked like a practice facility, wearing a Lakers warm-up suit. Hey, Sarah, he said, smiling that famous smile. I hear you're quite the basketball player. Sarah tried to speak, but no words came out. Maria gave her hand a squeeze. I try to be, she managed finally. I've been practicing your fadeaway shot. LeBron's smile got bigger. Yeah? How's that working out? Just like that, they were talking basketball. Sarah forgot to be nervous. She told him about her driveway practices, about teaching other kids at the hospital how to shoot, about watching his games during treatment. That's what really impressed me, LeBron said, his voice getting serious. How you're using basketball to help other people, even when you're going through tough times yourself. That's real strength. Sarah felt tears coming, but blinked them back. Champions didn't cry during pep talks. I'm sorry you can't make it to the game, LeBron continued. But I was thinking maybe we could... Suddenly the video froze. The screen went black. No! Maria yelped, frantically trying to reconnect. Not now! But the Wi-Fi signal was completely gone. Something about a storm in the area affecting the hospital's internet? Sarah fell back against her pillows, trying not to feel disappointed. She'd gotten to talk to LeBron James. That was more than she'd ever dreamed possible. Whatever else he'd been about to say didn't matter. We'll try to reconnect. Dave Thompson's voice came through on a patchy phone call. LeBron wants to finish the conversation, but the Wi-Fi stayed down for the rest of the day. Sarah's mom tried to cheer her up by ordering pizza to the hospital room. The first time Sarah had felt hungry for real food in days. You did great, Mija, her mom said, watching. Sarah actually ate a whole slice. Your dad would have been so proud. Sarah touched her silver chain and smiled. The day hadn't gone perfectly, but it had still been amazing. She'd talked to LeBron James. Wait until the other kids in the hospital heard about this. What Sarah didn't know was that back in Los Angeles, LeBron James was making some calls of his own. That sometimes when Plan A doesn't work out, Plan B can be even better. That real champions know how to turn setbacks into comebacks. But for now, Sarah drifted off to sleep, the warmth of LeBron's smile still glowing in her memory, not knowing that the best part of her story was still to come. The next few days passed in a blur of medical tests and treatments. Sarah's infection was getting better, but she still felt weak. The Lakers game was now just a week away, and even though she tried not to think about it, every time she saw the purple bandanas that the hospital staff had started wearing, her heart squeezed a little. At least I got to talk to him, she told Maria during their daily FaceTime call. Even if the Wi-Fi messed everything up. About that, Maria's face got mysterious. I think something's going on. What do you mean? Jenny's mom got this weird call about the banner, and Coach Wilson is acting super secretive. And your mom? Maria stopped suddenly, her eyes going wide. Never mind. My mom what? Sarah sat up straighter in her hospital bed. Maria Rodriguez. You better tell me. Nope. My lips are sealed. Maria made a zipping motion across her mouth. Just focus on getting stronger, okay? Sarah tried to get more information out of her friend, but Maria wouldn't budge. Even when Sarah threatened to never teach her the crossover move, Maria just laughed and changed the subject. Later that afternoon, Dr. Thompson came in for his usual checkup, but something was different. He was wearing a Lakers pin on his white coat, something Sarah had never seen before. How are you feeling today? He asked, checking her vital signs. Better, Sarah said, eyeing the pin. Did you become a Lakers fan, Dr. Thompson? He smiled mysteriously. Let's just say I'm expanding my basketball horizons. Now, about your treatment schedule for next week. Sarah noticed he spent a long time looking at the calendar on the wall, especially at the day of the Lakers game. He made some notes, had a whispered conversation with her nurse, and left looking pleased about something. Even the hospital food seemed different that day. Instead of the usual bland menu, her dinner tray arrived with purple and gold Jell-O cups. When she asked the cafeteria worker about it, he just winked and walked away, whistling. Mom, Sarah said that evening, what's going on? Everyone's acting weird. Elena looked up from her phone where she'd been typing something quickly. Weird? I haven't noticed anything weird. Oh, look at the time. I need to make a quick phone call. Be right back, mija." Sarah watched her mom hurry out of the room, definitely acting weird. Something was definitely up. The next morning, a package arrived from Los Angeles. Inside was a brand new Lakers jersey. Not just any jersey, but one with Sarah's name on the back and LeBron's number. A note came with it. "Keep fighting, champ." LJ Sarah hugged the jersey to her chest, breathing in the new fabric smell. It was exactly her size, not too big like her old one. How had they known? More mysterious things kept happening. The physical therapy room suddenly had new Lakers posters on the walls. The hospital's recreation room basketball hoop got a fresh coat of paint, in purple and gold, of course. Even Mr. Wilson, the grumpy janitor who always complained about noise, was wearing a Lakers cap. "Mom," Sarah tried again that night. "Just tell me what's happening." "I don't know what you're talking about," Elena said, but her eyes were twinkling. "Now, let's check your temperature and get some rest. Tomorrow's a big day." "Tomorrow? What's tomorrow? It's not the game day yet." "Did I say tomorrow? I meant every day is a big day when you're getting stronger." Her mom busied herself with the thermometer, clearly avoiding Sarah's eyes. That night, Sarah couldn't sleep. She kept thinking about all the strange things that had been happening. Maria being secretive, Dr. Thompson's Lakers pin, the perfectly sized jersey, her mom's mysterious phone calls. She was still awake when her phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "Get some sleep, young champion. Trust the process. Dave T. Dave T., the Lakers' social media manager?" Sarah's mind was spinning. What process? What was everyone planning? The next morning dawned bright and clear. Sarah woke up to find her mom already in the room, holding a fresh purple bandana and the new Lakers jersey. "Time to get dressed," Elena said with a big smile. "Dressed? But I don't have any tests today." "No tests," her mom agreed. "Something better." Before Sarah could ask more questions, Maria burst into the room wearing a Lakers t-shirt and carrying what looked like a makeup bag. "Ready for your game day look?" "Game day? But the game isn't until—" "Just trust us," Maria said, already pulling out purple and gold ribbons. The next hour was a whirlwind. Maria did Sarah's makeup, just a little, enough to make her feel pretty without breaking hospital rules. Her mom helped her put on the new jersey over clean leggings. The nurses came in with a wheelchair decorated in Lakers colors. "What's happening?" Sarah asked again, but everyone just smiled. They wheeled her down halls that seemed suspiciously empty, past walls where the usual hospital signs had been covered with Lakers posters. Even the elevator music sounded different. Was that the NBA theme song? When they reached the first floor, Sarah heard something that made her heart skip. The sound of a basketball bouncing. But not just any bounce. A rhythm she'd heard 1,000 times on TV, a particular pattern that players used during warm-ups. The wheelchair turned the corner toward the hospital's large recreation room. The doors were closed, but Sarah could hear voices inside. Excited voices. Lots of them. "Ready?" her mom asked, squeezing her hand. Sarah nodded, not trusting herself to speak. The doors swung open. The recreation room had been transformed. The walls were covered in Lakers decorations. The big banner from Jenny's mom hung proudly across one wall. But Sarah barely noticed any of that, because there, in the middle of the room, practicing shots at the freshly painted hoop, was a figure in a Lakers warm-up suit. A very tall figure, a very familiar figure. The ball dropped from his hands as he turned toward the door, flashing that million-dollar smile she'd only seen through screens until now. "Hey, Sarah," LeBron James said. "Sorry about the Wi-Fi the other day. Thought I'd deliver the rest of that message in person." What happened next would be talked about in Cleveland for years to come. But in that moment, all Sarah could think was that sometimes the best plays in life come when you least expect them. And this was just the beginning. Sarah's hands gripped the wheelchair armrests so tight, her knuckles turned white. The recreation room was packed with people. Her doctors, nurses, other kids from the pediatric ward, what looked like half her school and news cameras. But she couldn't take her eyes off LeBron James. He walked toward her, each step bringing him closer until he was right there, kneeling down to be at eye level with her wheelchair. Up close, he was even taller than she'd imagined. But his smile was exactly like it was on TV, warm and real. "Front de phone. Wi-Fi cutting out the other day," he said. That wasn't exactly part of the game plan, but maybe it worked out better this way. Sarah tried to speak, but her throat felt too tight. She was aware of her mom crying softly behind her, of Maria bouncing excitedly beside her, of cameras clicking. But mostly, she was aware of how LeBron James, the real LeBron James, was looking at her like she was the most important person in the room. "I heard you've been teaching some of the other kids here how to shoot hoops," he said. Sarah managed to nod. When I'm strong enough." "Yeah, they told me about that. About how even on your toughest days, you make time to help the younger kids. About how you never let them give up." He glanced around the room at the other children from the pediatric ward, all wearing Lakers colors. "That's real leadership, Sarah. That's what being a champion is all about." A little girl named Lily, who Sarah had been teaching to dribble, called out, "Show him your fadeaway, Sarah." LeBron's eyebrows went up. "Oh, you've got a fadeaway? Now I've got to see this." Sarah looked uncertainly at Dr. Thompson, who nodded encouragingly. "Just take it easy," he said. With Maria's help, Sarah stood up from the wheelchair. Her legs felt shaky, but she was determined. LeBron handed her the basketball. His basketball, the one he'd been practicing with moments ago. The room went quiet as Sarah dribbled twice, just like she'd practiced 1,000 times in her driveway. She took a deep breath, channeling every ounce of strength she had left. Then, just like she'd seen LeBron do countless times, she leaned back, pushed off her right foot, and released the ball in a perfect arc. Swish! The room erupted in cheers. Sarah felt herself wobbling, but before she could fall, strong hands caught her shoulders. LeBron James himself was steadying her, looking at her with what seemed like, "Was that pride?" "Not bad," he said, helping her back to the wheelchair. "Not bad at all, but I noticed something about your form." What happened next was like a dream. LeBron James, the greatest basketball player in the world, gave Sarah a personal shooting lesson right there in the hospital recreation room. He showed her little tricks about balance, about finding your center even when you're tired. Every kid in the room watched in awe as Sarah tried again and again, getting stronger with each shot. "You know what the secret is?" LeBron said after one particularly good basket. "It's not about how much strength you have, it's about using whatever strength you've got in the smartest way possible." Sarah thought about her treatments, about how some days even walking felt impossible. Like changing your game plan? Exactly like that. He smiled that million-dollar smile again. "Speaking of game plans, I hear you were supposed to come see us play next week." Sarah's heart squeezed. "Yeah, but the doctors say it's not safe. With my immune system and everything." "Well, that's why we brought the game to you." LeBron gestured around the room. "But that's not all. Dave?" The social media manager stepped forward holding a tablet. On the screen was a live feed from the Rocket Mortgage Fieldhouse, the arena where the Lakers would play next week. The entire Lakers team was there, practicing, but they stopped when they saw the connection was live. "Hey, Sarah," they called out, waving. Anthony Davis, LeBron's teammate, stepped closer to the camera. "We heard about your fadeaway. LeBron better watch out." Sarah couldn't believe it. The entire Lakers team knew who she was. But here's the really cool part, LeBron continued. "We had an idea. You've been teaching kids here about basketball, right? Helping them stay positive during their treatments?" Sarah nodded, not sure where this was going. "Well, how would you like to do that at every children's hospital in the country?" The room went silent. Sarah blinked. "What?" LeBron's face got serious. "We want to start a program called Sarah's Shooters. It'll put basketball hoops in children's hospitals all over America with special equipment that kids can use even when they're not feeling strong. And we want you to help design it. Tell us what worked for you. What helped you teach other kids?" Sarah felt tears rolling down her cheeks, but for once, she didn't try to hide them. "Really?" "Really. And one more thing." LeBron reached into his warm-up jacket and pulled out something that made Sarah gasp, an official Lakers coaching clipboard with assistant coach Sarah Martinez engraved on it. "We could use someone with your expertise," he said with a wink. "What do you say? Want to join the team?" Sarah couldn't speak. She just nodded, hugging the clipboard to her chest. The rest of the morning was a blur of shooting baskets, taking pictures, and talking with LeBron about her ideas for Sarah's Shooters. The other kids got to play too, showing off what Sarah had taught them. Even Dr. Thompson tried a shot, and missed spectacularly, making everyone laugh. But the best moment came when Sarah was getting tired and needed to rest. As Maria helped her back to the wheelchair, she saw LeBron talking quietly with her mom, showing her something on his phone. Elena was crying again, but smiling too. "What was that about?" Sarah asked when her mom came over. "Oh, just some details." "About the program," Elena said, but her eyes were shining in a way Sarah hadn't seen since before she got sick. "And maybe a few other surprises." As if on cue, LeBron came back over. "Almost forgot the most important part," he said, pulling one more thing from his jacket, a silver chain, just like the one Sarah wore with her dad's picture. But this one had a small basketball charm on it. "Your mom told me about your dad," LeBron said softly, "about how he never gave up either. Thought maybe you could wear this next to his picture. Keep both kinds of strength close to your heart." That's when Sarah did something she'd never thought she'd do. She hugged LeBron James, and LeBron James, the greatest basketball player in the world, hugged her right back. What Sarah didn't know then was that this moment would be captured by one of the cameras, that the photo would go viral, inspiring thousands of other sick kids to keep fighting, that Sarah's Shooters would become one of the most successful children's hospital programs in the country. But she did know one thing. Sometimes the best dreams aren't the ones you start with, but the ones that find you along the way. And this dream was just beginning to soar. 1 year later, Sarah Martinez stood in front of a crowd at the opening of the first official Sarah's Shooters basketball court at St. Mary's Children's Hospital. Her purple Lakers bandana was long gone, replaced by dark curls that had grown back even curlier than before. The silver chain around her neck now held two charms, her father's picture and the tiny basketball from LeBron. "When I was sick," she said into the microphone, her voice strong and clear, "basketball wasn't just a game, it was hope. It was a reason to get out of bed, even on the hardest days. But the real magic happened when I started sharing that hope with other kids." In the audience, she could see some familiar faces. Lily, who had mastered her dribbling and was now teaching other kids. Dr. Thompson, wearing his Lakers pin proudly. Maria, holding up her phone to record everything. And her mom, crying happy tears as usual. On the screen behind Sarah, photos scrolled by. Sarah teaching a little boy how to shoot from his wheelchair. Sarah helping a girl with an IV pole practice. Her passing. Sarah organizing wheelchair basketball tournaments in the hospital recreation room. Pictures that the nurses and other parents had taken over the months of her treatment, without her even knowing. These were the photos that had truly caught LeBron's attention that day. Not the viral hashtag or the news stories, but these quiet moments of a sick girl helping other sick kids find their strength through basketball. I never thought what I was doing was special, Sarah continued. I just knew that on days when I felt weak, teaching someone else to be strong somehow made me stronger too. The new court was beautiful, purple and gold, of course, but with special features that made it accessible to kids with different abilities. Adjustable hoops that could lower for wheelchair players. Special lightweight balls for kids who couldn't lift the regular ones. Rails and supports for those still learning to walk again. But the most special feature was the wall of promises. Each kid who came to play would write their promise on a basketball-shaped card and pin it to the wall. Some promised to never give up. Some promised to help others. Some simply promised to keep shooting until they made a basket. Sarah walked over to the wall and pinned up the first promise card. On it, she had written, "I promise to keep the game going." That's when the surprise guest walked in. "Mind if I add a promise too?" LeBron James asked, appearing from behind the crowd. The kids went wild. Even though he'd visited several times during the development of Sarah's shooters, seeing LeBron James in person never got old. He wrote his promise and pinned it next to Sarah's, "I promise to keep learning from the real champions, like Sarah." As cameras flashed and kids cheered, LeBron turned to Sarah. "You know, people keep asking me why I hugged you that day in the hospital. They think it was just about making a sick kid's wish come true." Sarah smiled, knowing what was coming. "But the truth is," LeBron continued, "I hugged you because you taught me something I'd forgotten, that the greatest victories don't always happen on the biggest stages. Sometimes they happen in quiet hospital rooms, when someone who's fighting their own battle takes the time to help someone else fight theirs." He looked around at the new court, at the wall of promises, at the kids already lining up to play. This isn't just a basketball program. It's a promise to keep your spirit going. The spirit of a girl who never let being sick stop her from helping others get stronger. Sarah felt tears in her eyes, but these were different from the tears she'd cried during treatment. These were tears of joy, of pride, of knowing that something beautiful had grown from something hard. Later that day, after the cameras left and the crowd thinned out, Sarah sat on the new court with her mom. Elena held her daughter close, both of them watching as kids played on the court, their laughter echoing off the walls. "Your dad would be so proud," Elena whispered, touching the silver chain around Sarah's neck. "You think he can see all this?" Sarah asked. "I know he can, Mia, and I bet he's up there telling everyone, 'That's my girl, the one who turned her last shot into a first shot for so many others.'" Sarah stood up, picked up a basketball, and walked to the free throw line. The ball felt perfect in her hands. Not too heavy, not too light, just like the weight of the responsibility she now carried. The responsibility of keeping her promise to help other kids find their strength. She took her shot. The ball arced through the air, just like it had that day in the hospital when she'd shown LeBron her fadeaway. As it swished through the net, Sarah realized something. Sometimes the most important games we play aren't about winning or losing. They're about who we help up when they fall, who we teach to shoot when they think they can't, who we inspire to keep fighting when they want to give up. That was the real reason for the hug that had gone viral the real story behind Counter Sarah's last shot. It wasn't about a basketball star meeting a sick girl. It was about two people recognizing in each other the same truth, that real champions are made not by the trophies they win, but by the lives they touch. And Sarah Martinez, the girl who had once just dreamed of seeing her hero play, had become a different kind of champion. One shot, one smile, one lesson at a time. Here's a short and engaging outro that encourages audience interaction. Thank you for experiencing Sarah and LeBron's incredible journey. Where are you watching from? Let me know in the comments below. If this story touched your heart, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe. For another inspiring story that will move you just as much, click the video appearing on your screen right now. Remember, sometimes our biggest setbacks lead to our greatest comebacks. Just like Sarah taught us, we're all capable of being champions. In our own way, stay strong, and I'll see you in the next video.